then I got reciting things, you see. And then I started imitating.
Who would you imitate? You remember any?
A fellow by the name of Cliff Gordon, and I imitate David Warfield, the actor, you know, the famous Jewish tragic actor. And I would put on only a kid, you know, but I still did it so well.
Can you remember how you did it?
Yes.
How? What'd you do?
I would make a speech that David Warfield, the music master, the great tragedian actor, describes on his play when his wife was taken away by a villain. Talked to her, and they also took his daughter away with them. And one day they told the music master that he threw out the daughter, or he mistreated the daughter. He ran into the house there, and he said, "Hey, you villain, you villain, you took away my cherished wife, my love of all my heart, my household, you took her away, you villain. Yes, and yes, you always took away my little girl, my little sweetheart, my little doll, you took her away from me, and now you hurt her, you don't want her, I want her, she's my own flesh and blood, you devil, you villain, you, I want her, she is my little brat, leave her go to me, please, yes, leave her go to me, you know."
Yeah. So they were crying. Your audience was in tears.
Oh yes, my God, these people, yes. And then I would recite other things. In the life of every grafter, there mingled tears and laughter. This was after, but I forgot that. And then life, then I got older, I started reciting Tennyson. Yeah, Tennyson, I used to tell that, you know, in the audience.
That one poem that you recite, "Life is a Peculiar Thing." When did you learn that?
Well, I learned it, you hear it, you learn it, you know.
Yeah. Recite a few lines. Okay, now.
Did you ever sit and wonder, sit and think why we're here and what this life is all about? It is a problem that has driven many a brainy man to drink. It is the hardest thing we ever tried to figure out. Yes, sir, there are about 1,000 different theories that all the sciences can show, but yet never prove the reason why, with all we thought and all was thought, all we seem to know is we're born to live a while and die. Life is rather a funny proposition after all. It is all imagination and hypocrisy and gall. 3 meals a day and a whole lot to say, and when you haven't got the coin, why, you're always in the way. Everybody is fighting as we move away along. Everybody claims the other fella's in the wrong. Hurried and worried until we are buried, then the curtain falls. When all things are coming easy and luck is with a man, then to him life is sunshine everywhere. Then the paths blow rather breezy. Then he cries, "Oh, life is a burden hard to bear. What brings me joy may bring you care and woe. We're born to die, but don't know why or what's it all about. And the more we try to figure why, the less we know. Life is a funny proposition, you can bet. There is no one that has ever solved that problem as yet. Young for a day, then old and gray, just like the beautiful rose that buds and blooms and fades and falls away. We're fighting to gain our wealth, and I can't remember now.
No?
Gain our wealth, to gain our wealth. It's through this tour we wonder. All things are coming easy and luck is with the man. To him life is sunshine everywhere. Then he passed by rather be but it says floating with it, huh? I can bet.
Well, you know a lot of it, though.
I just take escape me now.
It's quite a
Yes,
remarkable thing.
yes, it brings me joy. Became with through this world we tour. Everything's a guess, there is nothing sure. Battles exciting, oh fads we are fighting. Then the curtain falls. Life is rather peculiar after all. Don't you think so? It's rather peculiar. Well, of course, that spoiled it.
When did you learn, what do you think about that poem, what it says?
What do I think about it?
Yeah, what do you think about that poem?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's so real. It's true, and that's what fascinated me.
When did you find it?
Oh, this was my God, I don't know. It's 75 years
You're
ago.
kidding. As a young kid, you found that
sure.
poem.
Yeah. Maybe I was 17, 18 years old already then. I'd go already now and keep company with girls, and we'd come to parlors and sing and play. Then I had one about Tennyson, and he sings this poem to his sweetheart. Don't you think? I mean, you should get into more.
Yeah, all of it's good,
What goes
Dan.
after?
Whatever.
What comes after?
Yeah.
Well, you want to. You know, one thing you didn't tell, and it's a great story, is about the one story that I'd like you to tell is about J.P. Morgan and selling the papers.
Oh, well,
'cause
that's
a
when
good
I
one.
sold the papers.
Yeah, but tell it, 'cause it's good.
Yes, well, I heard, you know, we were so poor, like church mouses, that you would hear the rich people who had millions, that dollar, had no conception about money. But I'd heard that I used to go down to sell newspapers. I'd go where the rich people are. And I heard that J.P. Morgan on number Wall Street, right across there was Morgan. And everybody was frightened of him. He was a rough man. But I was not afraid of anything. I just went in there, decided to sell him papers there, and of course I couldn't get near him. So I turned around and I put the paper in one day, the next paper, and I put another paper in. I was going to wait until everybody in the office would leave the office, where I'd catch him alone and ask him to pay me for the papers. It's a crazy idea, you know. So, sure enough, everybody left with the exception of his assistant, his personal secretary. And I walk in barefooted in his office, and I look in, and his office was kind of open, and he's got his head down there. He's looking at something. The first thing, he looks up and he sees me.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want? You know, what do you want? I said, I gave you the papers. You owe me money. He says, what do you want? I gave you the papers. You owe me money. By that time, you know, I'm scared stiff already, you see. So he looks, how much do I owe you? I thought of a lot. He's a rich man. I said, $1. $1. $1, hey? How do you make that out? The papers, I gave you papers here, $1. I made some lame excuse of some kind. He calls his aide over, his secretary. He says, give this boy $10. And he gave me $10, and he says, you'll get by. You know, he says, you'll get by in this world, but words to that effect.
Yeah.
Well, I worked the same thing on James R. Keene and John W. Gates, and it worked in every case, you know. I got the $6, $8, $3, but I got so that Mr. James R. Keene, who was a very beautiful man, side beard, he used to love to take me and put me on his lap. I had red cheeks like white, and I was white, and always clean boy. And he'd buy my papers, and one day he takes a hold of me, and he says, sonny boy, he says, you know, I got the finest horses in the world, yes. He says, you know, I should know a lot about racehorses. I just want to tell you, when you grow up, don't ever bet money on racehorses. It's the unbeatable game. You never can win. Don't. Will you give me a promise? You won't. So I said, yes, boss. Yes. No.
Did you keep the promise?
I sure did.
Yeah.
I sure did. That's right. So, as I did so many things in between, you know, it's mixed up.
Well, one incident that I remember you're talking about when you were a little boy and you had a shining box, I think, and this guy hit you over the head or something.
Oh, well, yeah, well, that's a terrible thing.
Well, but it's
I was selling collar buttons and cuff buttons and jewelry, and I got already now, I was about 11 years old, see, a little older. And I got my father to give me $10 to buy a regular traveler's case, you see. I got one made specially for me, and I was ready then. Merchant, I went to Jersey City with it, and I had the little trays, everything else like that. The mucilage were still not quite dry, but I figured I'd take them out. And I was so proud that I was a traveler then, like, you know. And I came off the ferry, I went into a saloon, collar buttons, cuff buttons, all kinds of this here, and I was just talking like that in front of bars, you know. People, first thing I know, a glass of beer was put in right inside of my cart. And he said, they look very thirsty to me, those thirsty collar buttons. And he poured the beer in my box. My God. And if you imagine, you know, with all my stride, he was drunk, see? So I turned around while he was standing up on the bar, and I hit him a smash in the face with all the strength I had, and he kind of flooped down, and he hit his head on the bar, and he fell down. And his friends, you know, went over there, they were drinking. Here, Pat, here's to you, you know, with that beer, while he's laying unconscious, you know. It wasn't my punch that did it. Here, Pat, here's to you. And I cried, I was so terrible. I said, what did I tell my father?
You thought you killed him?
Well, no, I thought of my box. It wasn't, all my jewelry became green,
Yeah,
you know, with the beer. And the box, you know, started, the mucilage wore off, like, from the wet. And I just was so terrible. Well, that's the early life in New York, fighting this every day.
Didn't you once spend a couple of days in jail as a kid, too?
Yes, I did.
How did that happen?
With two kids who were fighting.
Yeah.
And we were put in jail, that's all, for 2 days.
And you said there was a baby in the cell with you?
Yeah, there was maybe 4 days, just a minute. Then there was a little boy there. And I was already about 9. So this was between the biggest murderers and thieves and everything. We were taken into this there. And the little boy, I liked him, and I turned around. He was dirty, filthy, and I dried him up and washed him up and so forth, and kind of looked after him. He hung on to me, and he wouldn't let me go. And I had my hands full, you know, to let go, and then he cried right after me. It must have been a kid that was abandoned by their mother and father, because they put all these things together down there. Who's that? Who's
No,
that?
that's Amy. She just came.